as soon as you get your summons to go to court, you write to the Crown and you say, excuse me, I just need to clarify, which Crown are you? Do you represent Queen Elizabeth from the House of Windsor, or do you represent Her Majesty in Right of England, which I believe to be the Crown Corporation of London? And judging by the statutes that you're attempting to enforce upon me, I'm guessing that I'm right, and you're this other crown that isn't Queen Elizabeth. So, seeing as how you're a corporation, if you want me to go to your court and face some of your statute laws, you need to show me the contract that I have with your corporation. Because if you're attempting to enforce a contract upon me that doesn't actually exist, then I'm going to approach the other Queen, the Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth of the House of Windsor, and I'm going to inform her that there has been a breach of my human rights. And she will act upon that, because that is her duty to do so, because she is sworn by the coronation oath to uphold the common law and preserve the common law rights of the people. But she has to be petitioned to do so. If we don't say, hey, these guys are trampling on our rights, and approach the Queen's Secretary and get him to deal with the problem, then they're not going to deal with the problem. You know, if your children are playing up and you don't know it, or you're not even looking, and they don't come and tell you about it, you're not going to know and deal with the problem. So, you know, equity, one of the rules of equity, one of the maxims of equity is that equity honours the vigilant. Equity favours the vigilant, not those who sleep on their rights. So rights only work if you choose to exercise them. You have common law rights. The Queen is in place as the defender of those rights, but you have to petition her to do so, or at least ask her to do so, or at least make her aware that a problem is occurring. I mean, not to say that she isn't probably one of the main shareholders of the other Crown Corporation anyway. But see, this is how they get away with it. This is just how they get away with it. So you've got to know who and what you are, and you've got to be prepared to stand in that and know that you're free. You absolutely do. You can't go there to fight the system. For me, the system doesn't exist. It's fiction. Everything below the word man is fiction. It's all fiction. And once you realize that and you know that, and you operate within the guidelines of God's law, whatever you perceive that to be, and I sum that up as do no harm, and I know other people that do that as well. I really, really recommend that people look at Dean Clifford's videos on trust law. I've got a website called thecrowhouse.com, and if you go there, you'll find a banner that says Lessons in Trust Law that will take you to a whole bunch of workshops of Dean's, and that's a really good way of getting your head around it. But it's so important for people to establish their preeminent trust with the Creator and to stand in their power, and don't wish to fight the system. Don't go there in fear of the system. Don't be coy with these people. Just deal with it administratively before you even have to go to court. Just send off these documents, ask them to establish what their actual standing is, and tell them you believe you can appoint yourself administrator, you'd like to know which crown you're dealing with, all of this sort of stuff. And then once you get the default judgments, because you give them 21 days to, well, you've got 21 days to go to court, so you could send it to them and you could say, well, I'll give you 10 days to reply. That's pretty normal. 3 days mailing time, 3 days to examine it, 3 days to get back to you, and a day's grace. That's pretty standard. So you send them that. They don't answer. You issue a default judgment. They don't answer that. You take that document and your default judgment and the receipts to show that you sent it registered mail. They received the documents. You've got total agreement of the parties. You go and file it with the court. There need be no case because we have agreement of the parties that there is no jurisdiction, motion to dismiss, and file that with the court. And that will override most statutes.
That's brilliant. So, in a typical scenario in court, you approach the bench when you're asked to come up. You know, you've been fined, I don't know, speeding or something or whatever, and you will say, you will establish with the judge, I'm appointing myself the administrator of the trust. Or could you say, Franco Collins had an interesting suggestion. I just wonder whether that would be okay to say. He says that I am the occupant of the office of the General Executor of the estate. Is that?
Well, yeah, I mean, You could say that. You could say that. It's kind of getting complicated. The less words you use, the better, because words are open to interpretation. It's like even when you say the statement, I am. You know, I am. Therefore I exist because I am. You know, I am. If I'm not, then how am I talking to you? You know, I am. Even when you say I am man, now it's open to interpretation. Okay, well, what's a man? Are you referring to man as in Black's Law Dictionary definition of man? Human being? What's a human being then? A human being is defined in some books as a monster. So what are you? You've claimed to be a man. Can you prove that you're a man? You know, you've created, it's open to interpretation simply by adding one more word. Whereas I am, you know, either you are or you aren't. You know what I'm saying? So you start, the more words you add to a sentence, you start making it open to interpretation. What dictionary are they using for their words? What dictionary are you using for your words? That's a good thing to specify in these documents as well. You know, every word in this document, the meaning of it can be found in Oxford English Dictionary or in Black's Law Dictionary or whatever one you're going to use. But establish what that is if you're going to deal with these people. And say things in the simplest of terms. Absolutely the simplest of terms. You know, if you go to court, as soon as they call your name, you'd say, well, I'm here regarding that matter. They don't even say your name. I'm here regarding that matter. Who are you? Well, I'm the person who was arrested. Well, state your name. You say, well, rather than state my name, it's not really important. It's more important to establish the position that I'm in, the role that I'm playing, and I'm here as the administrator of that account. Are you a public servant? And I'll probably call the sheriffs about that point. So it kind of gets into a bit of a shouting match, but you've got to establish yourself as the administrator as soon as possible, so that otherwise they will presume they are the administrator. So that's why it's best to preemptively deal with it by sending in the paperwork, establishing that before you go to court in those 21 days grace that they give you to do this. That way you don't go in. See, even if you go into their court, you're in this place, you're in this whole corporate system just by being there. And if you're saying the judge has no jurisdiction over you and you don't even really need to go to the court because you've established what your position in the trust is, then what are you even doing in their court? Unless they've dragged you in there. But, you know, if you've gone there of your own accord under a summons because you want to put the judge in their place for attempting to take away your human rights, then is that really honourable? Why do you need to go there if it's a fictional court based on a corporate system and you've established what your standing is? Why do you even need to go to their court unless they drag you there? You know what I mean?
So now let's clear this up then. So it's their trust, right? They created the trust.
Well, the trust was created by your parents and the government. They signed a document with the government, a certificate of live birth, which entered into a trust agreement with the government where your parents were the grantors. They created this trust with the government where they placed your share of the Commonwealth into the hands of the government with you as the beneficiary. But, and once you've reached the age of majority, which is I think 14, you can claim that, but you never do. See, that's the thing, because we don't know it exists that way. We don't know it's actually a trust agreement. So we never stand up and claim our right to administer our own affairs. So they administer them for us. And what they do is they appoint themselves as administrator, because we never claim that, because they have control of the trust, because it was registered with the Attorney Regis Trust, which of course gives power of attorney to the registered, you know what I mean? Gives power of attorney to the Crown. So they're governing the affairs now, so they're acting as administrator and putting you in as the trustee and the Crown as the beneficiary, and the Crown Corporation, of course. So that's how it's working. So they're just basically using you to milk everything that you have and milk every resource out of the planet and transfer it into the hands of the Crown Corporation. See, that's what's happening, because we never claim our right as the sole shareholder. See, that's the payroll. The fact that you own all the equity. The fact that you're the sole shareholder in that name. They are simply part of the arrangement. And once you've reached the age of majority, you can say, well, thank you very much for looking after my life up to this point, but now seeing as how I'm the only shareholder, I'm appointing a new administrator. And that's putting you back in your rightful position as a public trustee, because that's what you are. You are public servants, you people. And that's the way you have to approach it. But see, we never claim that because we don't know it exists, so we never claim that right to do so. But as a sole shareholder, of course you can. I mean, in a corporation, who appoints the CEO? It's the shareholders. And if the CEO is doing a bad job and the company's going down the tube, they vote him out and they elect a new one. Well, we're the shareholder of ourselves. We're the sole shareholder of ourselves. We own all the equity. We just have to take responsibility for the liability and stand in our power and administrate ourselves.
So in that analogy, then the justice or the judge or the magistrate is the CEO, and we can say, well, look, we're the shareholders and we don't like the job you're doing, so we're voting you out. I'm going to appoint you. I'm going to appoint myself the administrator, and I ask you to handle the accounting and dismiss the case.
Well, even if you do that, you're claiming fact again. You do it on presumption.
Mm-hmm.
You do it on presumption. I've come here on the understanding that as the sole shareholder, I can appoint myself the administrator. So I've come here as the administrator and look at the judge and say, are you a public servant? Because if you are, then you're a public trustee. I mean, I've come here under that presumption. Are you guys saying something different? If you're claiming that you have administration rights over this all capitals legal person, please tell me under whose authority you're claiming that. And back it up. I mean, show me proof of claim, because I'm the sole shareholder here, and only shareholders can appoint administrators. So I've come here under the assumption that you're the trustee, and they have to then prove you wrong, because it's all about presumption, isn't it? You know, when you're in court, it's all about presumption. So you're just presuming that this is what's happening. You know, I've actually lodged documents and said I didn't want to come down here, but you guys insisted, and so now I've come down here as the director and CEO of this legal person in order to have a chat in front of the trustee to inform you that I don't appreciate you messing with my company, because I'm the one who calls board meetings for my legal person, not you guys. I have no contract with your corporation.
Beautiful. And I wonder, do you know anyone, or have you yourself asked that question in a court? Are you a public servant to the judge?
I haven't myself. I haven't been to court for a while. I just don't seem to attract that energy. But I mean, like I said, it's not about me going to court. I don't really want to battle anyone. I just want to have humanity know that they're free. I've been trying to tell them I've done so many shows trying to explain how reality works to people and just let people know that they are free. And what I find exciting about trust law is I can say, well, look, now if you view your birth certificate from the right perspective and look at the arrangement you're actually in with the government, I can prove that you're free. You know, do you feel free yet? You know, because I think it's really important that humanity realizes that they are free, and that we start putting these governments back into their rightful place as public trustees, and realize what a terrible job they're doing as trustees. Because all of these wars and the fracking and all the stuff that's going on the planet at the moment, it's because the trustees are out of control, because we, the shareholders, are not appointing the correct directors of our trust. And that's what it all comes down to.
It's pretty simple when you see it like that, isn't it? It's just so
simple. It is. It's absolutely simple. See, that's the thing. People make it very, very complicated, but really the truth is so simple. It's so ridiculously simple that most people simply can't see the forest for the trees. They think there must be revolutions to be waged, or all this endless paperwork to fill out, and all these things and steps they have to do, and all these little tricks that they do to try to collapse these trusts and all this sort of stuff. All we have to do is claim our right to administer our own trust that already exists with these people. Simply step into the role that you were born to be, and start making these trustees act the way the administrators tell them to act.